first approve. Excellent. The first thing to do is to approve the minutes of the May meeting. Joe Abley or Susan Foley, any comments? I vote to approve. Any?
All right, I second and approve.
I agree.
Okay, unanimous. The minutes are approved, and I'm happy to see that a lot of people are joining the meeting. What I'd like to do is first ask if there are any members of the public who have any questions or comments that they want to make, and please be brief. Any questions or comments? And Regina, you have the complicated job of picking one person versus another, but everyone will have a chance. Questions or comments?
I see we have Deanne with her hand raised.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Mr. Chair, I was wondering if I might be able to make a local recording with Zoom.
Regina, would you please do that?
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yes. If I can, wait a minute here. What's going on? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's Richard Chapman. Just, again, brief comment whenever, you're ready.
Yes, please do.
Oh, okay. I've had the greatest iPhone lessons from the Vibrant program, the MAVI, the MAB, VI. And I think the funding would help increase not only more aid for participants who would like to take part in the program, and also would keep some very, very good staff that we have, that I've had the pleasure of working with the past, not only year and a half, but for 3 years when we met at the Brookline Senior Center. And it's a wonderful program. And I'd be more than willing to write to you, Commissioner, more on, my personal feelings, how great the program is, and won't take up too much time. But that's why I'm here today, and proud to be here for such great iPhone instructors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Richard. Email us anytime.
Next person, please.
Hi, we have a caller, 508-564-4613.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jane Perry, and I'm from Falmouth. I'm here on Cape Cod. Can I be recognized to speak, please?
Yes, please, Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much. A couple of things. First of all, the MCB mailbox is up and running finally on the Newsline. However, it would be nice if they had a current events box or section. Second of all, I received a very important device that has changed my life. And yesterday, through the SR program, I received a text-to-talk Optelect Clearview reader, and it's just amazing. And I've also received some other things from the program. So I want to say that I'm glad that I advocated for the SR funding with my Cape Cod delegation, and also for next year. And also, I know transportation is a big thing, but I think I would like to see a committee formed through the commission. I know the MBTA is the largest regional RTA in the state, but if they want people to go back to work who are visually impaired and blind, or go back to school, or for the older folks, have their increased ADLs to increase the independence and dignity to go to doctor's appointments and get medicine and go to rehab, that I think it's time to start talking about transportation. So thank you for your time, and thank you for the opportunity to chime in on these calls. They're very, very important. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Okay, and the commissioner and others have made note of that, Jane. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yes, excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm new and I've been trying to raise my hand, and I don't seem to be able to do that.
Okay, your name, please?
My name is Kestrel Verliger, and I'm sorry, this is my first meeting.
You're doing a beautiful job. What would you like to say?
Yes. Hi, I'm a disability and technology advocate and also a recipient of services from Mass Commission for the Blind. And in that capacity, I applaud the survey, recent survey, which attempts to get a better grasp on the consumers who are using its services and potential consumers. However, as a person who identifies as queer and as someone who has been involved in a number of groups that are involved in improving healthcare equity, I found a number of the questions, especially the first questions, to be creepy and disturbing and invasive of my privacy. The very first question, which asked, what is your gender as listed on your original birth certificate, I found to be very invasive
Yep.
and very disturbing. And then the next 3 or 4 questions asked about my sexual orientation and the status of my personal relationships. And I felt that these had nothing to do with services that I receive. And even as a survey, I objected to them. And I felt that anybody who was coming new to MCB and was queer or gay or lesbian or trans, especially as a younger person, would be frightened away and never attempt to actually receive services. And so I want to protest those such questions and recommend that in future MCB attempt to get a sensitivity reader or consult with a resource such as the Fenway Health Center, which specifically provides resources and information for how to provide a more friendly and less invasive and frightening language. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, what are your thoughts regarding that? It sounds as, when was this questionnaire last revised?
Yes, thank you for your input. We'll certainly take that advice as good advice. We've worked with, the first company we worked with, HSRI. We didn't ask the survey in the first administration that particular question. Working with PCG, Public Consulting Group, this second administration of it, they advised us to include a question so that we can start building data and understand our community as best as we can. We discussed it and we thought, evidently not, but we thought we were doing a best practice from some other, we emulated a question from an existing public survey. So we'll try better. Any input you have, which the input you've given is valuable, send it along. That isn't, our goal isn't to exclude people. Our goal is the opposite. Our goal is to include as many as we can, and we'll try better. I'll pass that on to PCG.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's an important issue. And by the way, as the chair of the SAB, I apologize that we're holding this meeting on a day that very recently was proclaimed by the governor as being a state holiday, honoring Juneteenth. And I assure you that next year, this will not happen. It won't. We'll be extremely mindful of Juneteenth. And I think that the last caller just raised a very important question regarding a group of consumers, and we don't want to discourage any consumer from using the facilities and the services of MCB. And Commissioner, after you and your staff have had a chance to reflect on the concerns that were just raised, could you or someone just get back to everybody at the next meeting, whether there's any other thoughts that have come up since that comment was raised?
Sure. where the survey has been completed, at least the administration of it. They're now in the compilation phase and, basically putting the results together. We'll probably have that in time for the next meeting, at which time there will be a report and that will be included, like an analysis of each question will be included, so.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Next question, please.
Hi, we had Sharon had her hand raised for a while.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sharon Strakowski.
Hi,
And I just
Sharon.
Hi. I just wondered if there had been any guidance presented by the state yet about Mass Commission for the Blind workers who are now going out. Must they have been vaccinated? Is this a voluntary thing? I know where I work at the medical school, it is becoming kind of semi-required, I think. So I just wondered what you all had been hearing and what clients can expect. Thank you so much.
Yes, so vaccinations are voluntary. We're not going to require any of our employees to, we're not mandating that. If they'd like to get it, which we think that that's good public health advice, we're encouraging and providing access to those opportunities, but we are not requiring it. Same is true for consumers. We are not requiring it, although we are encouraging it. Things like the Vax train that we've been doing and trying to facilitate other appointments and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's a free country. People can make their own choices as what is best for their health needs. Regarding the employees, and in terms of going back to the face-to-face, I think as this group knows, many have been here at previous meetings, early on, we were one of the agencies to ask for waivers for certain departments. We got those for our orientation and mobility and our assistive technology, and then some other case-by-case basis stuff as well. We're still in that mode now. We have presented a plan for return on a hybrid basis. That plan is being reviewed by the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. And I think actually there was an email that I have to read in greater detail that I got. I think the plan may have even been accepted. So we now have to, I'll sit with the executive team early next week. Today is the holiday, so a lot of people are off. Some people are taking Monday off. So when we next meet as an executive team, to be able to communicate and send messaging to our union leadership of the unions that are in MCB and provide them communication so that they can understand it. And then once we have a dialogue with them, get the message out to their members, to our staff about, hey, here's what we're hoping to do. But even then, while we're emphasizing we'd like everybody to do it, we recognize there's going to be cases and there's going to be instances where it's not going to apply to everybody for one reason or the other. And we'll work through those. So does that answer your question, Sharon? I mean, the long way about it is we're getting back out there.
Sorry.
We're starting to open up. It's a
Right, pardon me.
process. We're not
Right.
forcing anybody to do anything. And this is all
Right.
happening gradually to make sure that people are safe, but also comfortable.
Right. So, so would that mean that a consumer could ask a worker to mask and that they would mask as well if they felt
Yeah.
uncomfortable?
Those are great questions. And those are some of the things I don't want to go out of
Right.
order. Those are some
Right.
of the things we're going to discuss with the union and our staff. And there's best practices and there's different guidances. And, I
Okay.
think different jobs probably will have different things to be cognizant of. So we're going to work through all that.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
And next question, please.
Hey, I actually had a quick question on that subject.
Yes,
David,
please, Joe.
if a consumer, and this is for the commissioner, if a consumer said they only want a vaccinated person for an in-person training or a home visit, would the commission do that?
We're going to work through that. People's health information is private and protected. So as long as we can ensure that that is in place, then I think reasonable dialogues can happen. For example, if staff are to offer up and say, hey, yeah, it's fine, I'm vaccinated and the world can know about it. Okay, well, then that gives us a piece of information. And the same is true for the consumer. But if they don't want to share that information, or if the consumer doesn't want to share that information, I think there's a different determination to be made. So we're going to work through those issues. We want to keep people's confidentiality and health. Those are our primary concerns. And I wish I had a one size fits all approach. I don't think that's going to be the case here, though. I think we're going to be case by case for some time. And this is going to continue to, these issues will continue to work themselves out. Now, with that said, I do think the large majority of people are going to offer it up and say, hey, I've been vaccinated. I've been showing people my vaccination card in meetings that I've been in, right? So I think for the large amount of cases, we're going to be able to resolve it and it won't be quote unquote like an issue. But with some others, it may be more. And so we'll work through those.
All right, thank you very much, David.
Thank you. Next.
Roberto has had his hand raised.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Commissioner. How are you?
Hi, Roberto. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So I'm speaking on behalf of my internship that I had with MCB and the importance of an internship, and then my job with MABV, specifically within the Vibrant program.
Yes, thank you.
Highlighting the importance of an internship and the opportunities that brings to everybody apart, not only the organization with the intern, but the internship program and growing that basis there. And then also MCB, growing up its internship program there, talking about the importance of how it brings experience, how it brings a sense of opportunity, and how that can potentially grow into what happened to me, which is a job with the Vibrant program.
Congratulations. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I agree totally. We just had a great internship opening ceremony. And we've got great news to report on the VR front. I think that's a little bit, there's some agenda items. If you want me to wait, we can talk in detail about that. But I agree. And thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, next we have Mike T.
Did you say Mike?
I think it's Mike. I'm sorry. Is it Mike or is it?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay, I didn't meet myself. I just wanted to say that I don't know. I was invited to this meeting from Jerry Felice, but I just wanted to say that that MABI, that assisted technology, especially with the COVID, has been really helpful because I'm trying to learn like I learned this laptop with him and stuff. I was just saying he was saying something about like funding, that would be something good to fund because I know that the commission doesn't really work with anybody else because like I'm trying to get a GED and stuff and they won't even work with with was it Mass Rehab. They said they take care of it, and for me it's like hard, so yeah. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Mike. I'm glad you're getting technology services. MABI is a great partner of ours, and assistive technology is very important. With MRC, you have choice. So with the vocational rehabilitation programs, if your principal disability is blindness, then we generally serve you. But if you don't like or agree with the services that we're providing, you have your right to go to MRC to get similar services, or additionally, if you don't like what we're doing, you can go to the client assistance program and let them know, and we can get into a dialogue. I mean, I hope we're meeting your needs.
Not really, because I don't know. I'm just trying to learn everything on my own because I'm totally blind now, and I would like a job and everything, and I'm just teaching. I get some mobility, and so I just practice what I get, and and.
Well,
trying to
rather,
learn
what I
technology
wouldn't
on
want to
my
do is
own.
talk about your particular case in a public
Yeah.
meeting. What I would say
Yeah.
is please contact us so
What
we
the-
can get your counselor involved and talk through it.
I'm
if
not
you
trying
feel
to
you
go
need
over
to
my
observe.
sister, my case. I was just supporting Mavi that you
I
should
got it.
fund
Thank
more
you.
people like that. Thank you.
Yes,
Have a
thank
good
you,
day.
Mike.
Yep.
I appreciate you, but please reach out because we want to serve you as best we can.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And any other consumers?
Hi, we have Mary with her hand raised.
Hi, did you say Mary?
Yes.
Okay, yes,
Hi.
thank you. Yes. So just going back to the mask versus vaccine issue, and coming up with a policy for staff and consumers. I just want to, encourage, the consideration of, maybe having to go with a mask requirement for everybody if people aren't going to be able to know whether someone has been vaccinated or not, that keeping people feeling safe is going to be really important, especially for clients who have maybe some other health conditions who may also have been vaccinated, and that will all be communicated to people beforehand so that people can make a decision as to whether they want to visit or not. So I hope that will all be taken into consideration with a policy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And things are like that are just what we're discussing.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, we have Sassy next.
Good morning. Well,
Hello,
where I am
Sassy.
at, it's good morning, but for all of you, good afternoon. Two quick things that I wanted to address. One is looking forward, backing up a couple of people who have spoken regarding the importance of funding for technology as we come into the next fiscal year for MAVI, and looking forward to your coming budget approval. Spending on technology post-COVID and post-pandemic is going to be one of the most critical things we have ever faced. And how we choose to support and whom we choose to support regarding technology services is going to be the biggest issue. And I would like to hear how MCB plans to address funding, especially for older adults regarding technology. The other issue being agreeing with what Mary just said regarding vaccinations. As a person who it would be critical for me to make sure that I'm safe because I am immunocompromised. How would we get our concerns addressed? Thank you.
Sassy, great to hear from you. And thank you for your partnership. So on the masks, yes, we hear that. And then as soon as we have done all of the dialogues that we need to do and everything and come up with the policies and procedures, we will be making those available in public, and that will be communicated. Your first point regarding assistive technology, particularly for seniors, we agree. We're waiting to see, just like you all, we are waiting to see the outcome of the budget. And depending upon how that goes, we could have more dollars for that, for those types of services, the same, less, we'll see. And when that time comes, all of the input that we've gained and just what we know, we'll make determinations on that. My inclination, my preference, what I would like to do is put more resources into those areas. I'm hopeful of doing that. But again, it's dependent, excuse me, it's dependent upon the budget, and that's still a process ongoing. So I guess we'd know better in a couple of months from now, but thank you for your input. And technology has been, remains, and will continue to be a priority for me.
Thank you. Next.
Next, Jeremiah Felice.
Hello, Commissioner. Hello, everyone. I just really
Hi.
wanted to express how much the partnership with MCB means to our organization. I want to express how I've enjoyed really partnering with the caseworkers to better service our mutual clients, and how important that partnership has been and how organic it's been. We've seen exponential growth in referrals throughout COVID, and we continue to look forward to partnering with you and to continue to serve our older population, and also to continue to foster relationships with the internship program, which has really worked well for both our organizations. And I just want to say thank you to MCB for that valued relationship. And we continue to look forward to strengthening that.
Yes, thank you, Jeremiah. We kept our programs going throughout COVID. We adapted quickly, and just a credit to all of the consumers, all of the staff, our staff, your staff, everybody involved for being able to do it quickly. And you had people before COVID who would have never joined a Zoom meeting, and now here we are with, what do we have, 50 people on a Zoom meeting? So that's a good thing. There's definitely some challenges to it, but I'm a positive person. I see the upside. So what can we learn going forward? How can we continue the support groups robustly, in person, remote, hybrid, some combination thereof? We'll work together. We'll figure that out.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, next we have Myra.
Hello. I have a lot of good things to say about the commission over many, many, many years, and over, through COVID, the responses have been really good. I am concerned about when you get back together with clients on a real continuous basis, coming into their homes, marking their stoves, showing them how to cut things with a knife, taking them out on mobility, that a mask is not sufficient. It just isn't, because the CDC guidelines for people who are not vaccinated, when I'm talking about people who are not vaccinated, whether they're your providers or whether they're the clients, the old guidelines were 6 feet apart plus a mask. And then they've come out with information about how 6 feet was arbitrary, that aerosols travel much further than that. So I'm thinking, I'm really concerned about putting your people and consumers in harm's way. And so I'd really like to know where you are. I missed the beginning of this because I was trying to find the raise the hand button for a long time. I would really like to know where you are with requiring your providers to be vaccinated. And if you're not going to do that, how can your consumers get service from people who are vaccinated?
Yes, thank you, Myra. So at this time, there is no quote unquote requirement. We believe it's a best practice. We're encouraging people to do it. We're providing access to the vaccines and facilitating that. At the end of the day, that's somebody's private healthcare choice, and we're going to respect that, and we're going to try to work within that, whether it's staff, whether it's consumers. And there are additional ways to problem solve. We'd work through those as well. The good thing is, I think right now, the data that we're seeing, both the amount of cases, the amount of hospitalizations, the amount of fatalities, they're all trending in the right direction. The amount of people vaccinated in Massachusetts, I think we're, if not the highest, we're among the highest states of people who have been vaccinated. There are still some challenges within some of the communities. We're working to address those. But generally, thankfully, we seem to be trending in a direction of health and less incidence of getting the virus. It still exists. There will still be a risk, and we're going to weigh those. We're going to err on the side of safety and health and caution. But we're also trying to open back up, because we've heard from the large amount of our consumers that they want that they want us back in the community, in their homes. Your points are well taken.
Clear. I don't think you should not be opening back up. I think that it is within your right to mandate that your providers have are vaccinated if they're going to be in people's homes or in cars with consumers who, in many cases, if people are blind, they do for some reasons, not everybody, but they do have underlying health issues. And even if they are vaccinated, there is a risk. And there is, personal freedom to not be vaccinated is not really, and that's just not anything you ought to be honoring. There is no personal freedom to not be vaccinated. It's a public health issue. And you as the commissioner can say anyone who's providing service to our vulnerable population of clients needs to be vaccinated. And I think you're sort of walking around the issue by giving me data, which really doesn't apply in individual situations.
Thank you. Hi.
I appreciate your
think that-
input, Myra. I do.
Thank you.
We're trying to make the best determinations we can. We're not taking any of this lightly. That's one of the reasons why we're being very deliberative about it. Not only hearing from our communities, but working with people in public health, the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, the Command Center, all of state government, CDC. So we're going to try. The challenge is, as a public entity, we're going to serve everybody. That's our goal, is to serve anybody who wants services, but at the same time, respecting everybody's individual rights and thoughts and freedoms and all that. So it's sometimes it's challenging, particularly when we've just, this is unprecedented. So trying to craft policies that applies for every single person can be challenging. So we're working through this.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I would ask consumers to realize that people have made the point regarding their desire that MAB get funded for technology services. The consumers have also articulately made the point regarding masks in the home and those issues. And let's not have, in the interest of time, let's not have any more questions on those points. I would ask the commissioner to give an update at the July meeting on those very important points. Are there any other questions regarding other issues? Oh, Gina, nothing else?
Hi, no, there are no hands raised right now.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Those are really important
Oh, we
points.
have someone, William. Sorry.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Hi, good afternoon.
My name is William Taub, and I have a number of roles. The first one is I am a client of Jerry Felice and his Vibrant program, which really helped improve the quality of my life.
Excellent.
The second piece is I also an ambassador and represent a company called Be My Eyes, and I'd like to follow up with you separately from this meeting because we'd like to partner with the Mass Commission for the Blind. And the third one is I am also working with UMass Medical and their program, and also a couple of startups I'd like to introduce to you.
Sir, I don't think this is the forum for that.
No, I'm just introducing myself.
Well, do you have a question for the commissioner?
No.
Okay, well,
let me finish, please.
This is not the forum to make a promotional plug for for-profit companies.
What I am also here is I am a client of the Mass Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired Vibrant program, and I'm here to speak about how excellent the program is.
Yes, thank you, William. It is an excellent program. I agree with you. Thank you for your advocacy and the many roles that you're wearing. I appreciate that. We are potentially interested in Be My Eyes and whatever we can do. We do have state contract guidelines to follow. So what I would encourage you is please send me an email.
Okay.
And we can get that going and have our contracts people reach out to you, and so we can get a presentation and see if there's an opportunity to work together.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sure. No, thank you. Do you want my email?
The problem is my handwriting's worse than my eyesight.
Do you want to give me your email and I'll email you?
That would be terrific. It's real
All right,
simple.
hold on. Let me grab my pen here. All right, William, go ahead.
It's all lowercase, all one word.
Yes.
It's William E. Taube @gmail.com.
Okay, so it's williametaube@gmail.com. Got it.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank
You're
you for
welcome.
letting me speak
William,
for a
thank you
couple
very
minutes.
much.
Thanks,
Yeah.
William.
And any other consumers before we move on to the next item on the agenda?
Hi, yes, next we have, I believe it's Jean. Jean Donovan.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Jean. Good
Oh,
afternoon.
good. Good. I'm not good at this. Anyway, I just wanted to say on a positive note that I've been with the Commission for the Blind for forever, and I can't express my gratitude for that organization. And also, I'm one of the coordinators for the program for people over 55. You know, the support group program.
Yes.
So I
Thank
just
you.
want to put in a little plug for that, as far as, funding goes, because really not because I run it, really, and, it's just that the people in my group, I don't really know what they would do without that support from, for that program, because, especially with the pandemic, we've been able to do it over the phone. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to meet at all. So I just want to say I appreciate, all, the partnership. And also, quickly, I want to put in a little plug for the Carroll Center for the Blind, because I just came back from 4 days there. Matter of fact, I came back yesterday, and I can't begin to tell you, how wonderful that was. I mean, I'm definitely one of your elder people, and I won't say how old I am, but believe me, I am no youngster. But anyway, I went there for JAWS training for the Microsoft Word Microsoft Office. And really, even though I was only there 4 days, boy, I'm telling you, that was a wonderful program. I got to stay there, which was good, because I live in Haverhill, and I can tell you that transportation is not great from Haverhill into Boston and back. So I appreciated the fact that I could stay there for the time. Anyway, I just wanted to put in a couple plugs, and I just wanted to say how wonderful those programs were, and I appreciate all that everybody does.
Thank you, Jean. I agree with you. Both programs are great. And thank you for the service that you provide.
Thank you. Next question, if there are any. Okay. Now I'd like to ask representative or representatives of Local 509 if they have any comments. They asked for some time to speak this morning.
I'm just gonna step aside for that, because I don't want to engage. I want to make sure I'm respectful of all of the
absolutely
the laws and with collective bargaining and all that. So
right, and this is, as I said to your general counsel, this is not a forum for dialogue. I just wanted to give representatives of 509 an opportunity to make their thoughts known to everyone. Yes, please begin.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Jelty. I work for the Commission for the Blind. I'm a vocational rehab counselor. I work in the Central Mass region. I also am a member of Local 509. I am the chapter president of the chapter that represents both the Commission for the Blind and the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. We wanted to be here today just to take a few minutes to speak to our perspective on the agency, and just share from an employee's standpoint about some issues. I'm here with two of my coworkers, Carolyn Ovison and Jim Badger. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
My name is Carolyn Ovison, and I work for the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. I've been here for 21 years, and I'm the rehabilitation teaching supervisor for the Southeast region down in New Bedford.
I am Jim Badger. I am a rehabilitation teacher at the Mass Commission for the Blind in the Boston region, kind of greater Boston region, Region 6. I am a member of the chapter board at SEIU 509 and the chair of the Disability Rights Committee at the union. I have also been a consumer of MCB and very grateful for it for, wow, over 50 years. So I'm glad to be here.
You only sound like you're 21. I don't know how that could be.
You're a wonderful human being.
Please continue. Sorry.
No worries. So this is Carolyn Jelty again. We have a pretty brief kind of presentation to give. So we're going to start that. So I'm going to start off. As I said, we're here today to speak on behalf of our chapter at SEIU 509, which represents the vast majority of the direct service staff at our agency. As you all are likely aware, we have been around, we being MCB, for 115 years. We are an institution in this state and dedicated to serving the legally blind citizens of this Commonwealth. We have remained a specialized and unique provider of rehab services since 1906, co-founded by Helen Keller. And we strongly believe that our mission as an agency really can't be overemphasized. Because of that, and because of the people who choose to dedicate our careers to it, we are here representing this chapter and want to testify to several concerns about the direction the agency has taken in recent years. Up until today, the SAB and MCB consumers have had opportunity to come to these meetings and hear from the commissioner's perspective and the perspective of management. We think it's important to present our perspective as MCB staff members, because we are the ones who provide the direct services to the consumers that we serve. There have been and continue to be decisions made by management that make it more difficult for agency staff to provide optimal services to consumers. These decisions, although as a union we have had opportunity to engage with management and executive staff, but oftentimes these decisions really are made behind closed doors and without input from staff, union representatives, consumers, community leaders. We're given an opportunity to speak with the executive staff, like I already said, about agency changes and directives, but that's really after decisions have already been rendered. We don't believe that this method of communication is transparent, and it doesn't really demonstrate a cooperative process of decision-making. It does not include the knowledge and experience of the direct service workers nor community leaders who serve MCB consumers. And ultimately, we think that without that cooperative process, that the people that we are tasked with serving are affected in potentially negative ways. I'm going to pass it to Carolyn Obeson to continue.
So from early on in the summer of 2020 through September of 2020, during numerous labor management meetings, we, as the elected leaders of our chapter, numerous times we questioned MCB management as to whether there would be any office closings or the shrinking of the office footprint of MCB. Numerous times we were told that absolutely no closings would occur and that regional offices would not be in any danger of closing. And in fact, the New Bedford office was told specifically that their lease was up in June of 2021 and there was nothing to worry about, their office wasn't going to close. However, on October 29th, 2020, a meeting was held with the New Bedford and Worcester regions, which occurred late in the afternoon. And at this meeting with those regions, it was announced by MCB management that both offices would be permanently closed as of December 31st, 2020. 45 minutes prior to that meeting, the directors of the Worcester and New Bedford regions were informed that their offices were permanently closing. They had no prior knowledge of these closings nor input about them. Prior to this date, neither staff nor the directors of these regions, affected community partners, nor consumers were notified of these office closings. In fact, up until the point that the office closings were announced, we were reassured that this would not occur. As a result of these swift and market changes to the regions, we, the chapter board, initiated impact bargaining immediately, and our union approached Mary Lou Sutters, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. We met with management multiple times to discuss the negative impact of office closings to consumers, community partners, and staff alike. Initially, no alternative space was offered to these regions. We continued to press management and the secretary, and as a result, we were offered only one alternative MCB touchdown location in each region. Each touchdown location offered to us is located within a DCF office in both the Worcester and New Bedford areas. These are not MCB offices. They are merely a cubicle or two and a desk, depending on which location, as well as a closet to store adaptive equipment. Mail, including packages such as blindness adaptive equipment, which teachers use, is not allowed to be received in these locations by case managers or any other staff. All mail must still be sent to the Boston office and then either scanned or mailed again from the Boston office to appropriate parties' homes or driven to the New Bedford space. This practice has significantly slowed down services to clients in many ways. Because this is not an MCB office, it will also not be advertised as a location for services to be rendered, nor will staff allowed to be received with walk-in clients at these spaces. While the majority of consumers do not visit us in our offices, it is crucial that we are able to offer this option to the consumers who may not have a home, who are dealing with issues such as domestic violence or abuse, or whose family members may be overprotective or domineering. This creates an inequity to consumers to those living in the regions where those offices were closed. The model that has been created essentially makes MCB staff and consumers visitors in those DCF offices and therefore second-class citizens. You need to understand that DCF is an agency that provides emergency services and that at times can result in dangerous situations in those offices. Having touchdown spaces in these offices translates to an increased risk to both MCB staff and consumers alike. This gives us pause, and we are extremely concerned about these spaces for those reasons. I'll pass it to Jim.
Thanks. Another concern that we have about the office closures is that they've resulted in the reverse engineering of some of our services. And as an example, during impact bargaining, we were told that rehabilitation teachers in the affected regions would be provided with demonstration kits of adaptive equipment, and that what they would have to do is go to the person's house, demonstrate the equipment, take it back, and then fill out an agency purchase order. And that subsequently the equipment would be delivered to the consumer, and the teacher would go back and provide instruction then. At the time, during impact bargaining, the union opposed this model and pointed out that it really violates the basic tenets and best practices of rehabilitation teaching and the establishment of a rehabilitative relationship between instructors and consumers. The other concerns we also had were that this model would present obstacles for consumers, for example, lost and stolen packages, that consumers who were elderly would have to pick up bulky and heavy packages. We were concerned, especially that people who were homeless would not be able to receive supplies at all. So subsequent to impact bargaining, we were then informed that this model of RT demonstration kits was going to be adopted statewide and in perpetuity by the agency. Due to consumer and staff pressure, and the fact that it was, I think, realized by everyone that this really wasn't a workable model, we are now not going to have this model of RT kits. So now regions are going to be allowed to purchase multiple quantities of items of adaptive equipment and other things that are provided by rehabilitation teachers. But this still doesn't solve the problem for the regions that in which the offices were closed, because there's no space in those regions, or not enough space. There's like a tiny amount of space, little closet space, not enough to store the equipment. And therefore, that creates a situation for the consumers who happen to live in those regions that it's going to slow down services. And we're concerned about the effect, particularly on rehabilitation teaching in terms of that. The other issue is that those offices are governed by DCF, the places that we have touchdown spaces. They're not governed by MCB. And so this has presented already a lot of obstacles for our staff in being able to access the spaces. And it's going to create a lot of obstacles for people in the future to be able to acquire the supplies and equipment that they need in a timely basis. We're also not allowed to receive mail or supplies at those offices. So it's all going to have to be transported, I assume, from Boston. So those are concerns that we have about that. I mean, we have worked very hard during the pandemic, and we recognize that there have been a need for a lot of different kinds of changes to our services to keep everybody safe, to meet social distancing guidelines, and to keep staff and consumers safe along the lines of what people were talking about earlier when they were talking about people coming back out to visit. And a lot of us, you know, we worked very, very hard during this time from our homes. We have since been provided with laptops and cell phones, but we've worked very hard using our own personal equipment for most of this time, including our phones, internet, paper, ink, computers, and really, we didn't mind. I mean, we really wanted to keep the services going. And so, but we also recognize that the way we've worked for the past 17 months was what we had to do because it was a pandemic. But we don't think that it's a model that we should continue during the future when the pandemic is over. It was the best we could do, but it really isn't the best model for MCB consumers going forward. And our concern is that policies that have been put into place and the way the model of service that is being presented going forward, it's as if this had been an ideal. And we don't feel that has taken into account the best practices that we need to adopt to be able to work in a post-pandemic environment. So I'm going to pass it back to Carolyn Jelty to conclude.
Carolyn, it's time to wrap up. Anything you briefly
Yep,
want to say?
I'm just going to wrap up right now. So we in conclusion, we have had 19 vacated positions in the last 5 years. Some have been posted, but only a few. Our blind registrants continue to increase, and we need to have services expanded, not contracted. We want agency leadership to understand that. And we also want to just emphasize that our unique service model really necessitates dedicated MCB office space, and the shared touchdown model just doesn't work for our needs. We would, hope to have the involvement of the community and our frontline workers and be listened to and involved in the decision-making process prior to them being made, not after the fact. Respect, dignity, and self-determination are central to our mission as an agency. And lastly, I just want to say, very proud to work for MCB, very proud of what we do. I think Carolyn and Jim would share that. And thank you for allowing us to speak today.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the three of you for making the time to speak at this meeting. Susan Foley and Joe Abley, my colleagues on the SAB, do either of you have any questions for the union representatives?
Yes, Chris. Where are the positions vacant by line, by 1,000, 2,000, and so forth?
So I have a written document I can share with you that I will share today after this meeting. And those positions that I'm referring to, again, that goes back 5 years, and they span across the disciplines, from orientation and mobility specialists to VR counselors to rehab teachers, every discipline, and hit every region as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, any questions?
No questions for me, just a thank you for coming to the meeting and presenting a very clear perspective. And it was very helpful to understand how the office closures, communication, the model that has been tested during this past year, and your perspective on it. So I very much appreciate what you've informed us about. And it adds a lot of value to our understanding of MCB.
Thank you.
Again, thanks for having us.
For everybody on the call, I want you to realize that Susan has consistently made us aware of what people in other parts of the country are doing. And now that we're out of, or getting out of, this crisis period, how can we make things better? I think it's not just treading water, but how can we make things better? The next part of the agenda involves financials. And rather than me going down point by point on the agenda, I guess I have one question for the commissioner before I turn it over to Joe Abley to just sort of run this financial part of the agenda. Commissioner, I know at several past meetings we've asked for quarterly financials, just in the format that your agency uses them, and to have Chandra as the CFO available. Is she available today? And what's the status of making quarterly financials available?
Yes, she's not available. So I'm confused. We had provided you the link to be able to get financials on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, year, whatever basis you all choose, every account from MCB. Have you not been able to look at the see-through link?
Joe,
I did, David. The issue is that what I can't, I need a little bit of a tutorial on how to get around on it. What I got to was a list of payments to vendors, which does me absolutely no good. It doesn't summarize in anything. So I found it difficult. What you sent the other day was incredibly summarized. So thank you. But there's something in terms of financials that show the inflows and outflows that would be most helpful. But thank you for sending what you did. It does provide some information for which I do have a question. But if Chandra at some point in time can help walk me through before the next meeting so that I understand it and can pull a financial, but looking at vendors just doesn't do any good. It really doesn't. And
one other topic of great interest is the 850,000. Commissioner, is that going to be available? Do we know?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Which 850,000?
Joe, help me with this. From the amount that was vetoed, and then there's the override.
Why don't I ask the question a little bit from a different perspective? That there is a Senate budget, and I guess now they're going to conference, David?
They're in conference committee. The conference committee has been named.
All right, so there's differences between the House budget and the Senate budget. It looks as though the administration and program operations is fairly close. Looks like Turning 22, DB Cam is fairly close. 3010 account, vocational rehabilitation for the blind is really close. There's some differences on the 1000 account, but we understand that they probably are going to come up with and agree upon what's in the Senate budget, which includes an earmark for $850,000 for technology, and then another, I believe, $350,000 targeted towards the Talking Information Center. And somebody asked the question a little bit earlier, that in anticipation, because given that it's now June 18th and the beginning of the fiscal year is July 1st, I would guess that given that the state is awash in federal money to spend, that I would think you'll have a budget in place by the end of the month, and that even if you don't, you really have to have a plan in place on how you're going to spend and how you're going to go about doing things. That with assuming that the $850,000 earmark is approved, and if there's a governor's veto overridden, have you thought about how you're going to spend it? My understanding is a lot of that money is going to be spent through your nonprofit partners, which I would guess would include the Carroll Center for the Blind, MAB, and MABFI. Can you give us some guidance as to your thinking of how that earmark would be implemented?
Sure. So an additional wrinkle there, your amounts I think are accurate. An additional thing though with the budget that there's differences, my understanding, is the House and Senate have some different language too. That language instructs MCB on what the legislature's wishes are. So as an executive branch agency, we're going to do whatever the legislature ends up enacting into law. after overrides are over and everything else. So that matters. And we're going to work within whatever parameters we're given. Now, with that said, yes, we've had multiple meetings internally with the executive team about various scenarios of how would we handle it if we got X? How would we handle it if we got Y? How would we handle it if we got Z? And I feel confident that we're going to be able to program that money. Further, if the trend in COVID continues to what it's been, in that it's abating and we're going back to being able to deliver our community services, I'm much more confident that we're going to be able to spend all of the money by the end of the year, use all the money. So unlike this year, where a lot of the challenge, because a lot of the programs were closed, the community was closed as a result of the pandemic, that lack of utilization led to excess funds, if you will. We've creatively tried to spend as much as we can, as responsibly as we can. As you all know, we can't just write blank checks. We can only provide monies for services that are rendered. So I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to provide more services for more people. But again, much of that is dependent upon the legislature and what they choose to do. And then, as you indicated, there's a veto process, there's an override process. So once that's all finalized and we know exactly what it is, money-wise and amount-wise, and then language-wise, what they want the emphasis to be on, we will adjust. And I'm very confident that we can support the programs that we've traditionally supported, and maybe even some new ones or some expansions or something.
So I would assume that then for the July 30th meeting, assuming that there is a budget in place, that you'd be able to report back to the SAB on how you would spend, particularly the earmark, to the extent it gets through.
Yeah, that would be the hope. As long, if we have it in time. If it's the day before, that might be a little. But if it's sometime before then we have a chance to contemplate, we can give you a pretty good outline of our plans. I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Thank you. So a couple of questions that for the financial that you sent, which I believe is through 6/14/21.
Yes.
That you've spent $18,400,000 of the $26,552,000 budget approved. That's 44% down. Don't know what you anticipate for the last couple of years. And I would assume it's, to the extent you commit to a service, the service is provided and billed, and that gets into this fiscal year. You don't have to be paid, just billed. Correct?
No, the service, my understanding is, and we could check with Max or, remember, we're operating without a budget director right now. So Max and Chandra are really like doing double duty, to their credit. No, my understanding is services need to be rendered.
That's what I'm saying.
By
rendered.
June 30th.
Rendered by June 30th. Okay. So to the extent, if the fiscal year ended today, it would look like you would have to revert back to the state $8,144,000.
No. The reversion, I have a back of the napkin estimate. And the reason why I say that is because it changes daily, number one. Number two, there are unforeseen costs that remain ahead in these final 2 weeks. If I had to guess right now, our reversion amount will be just shy of $500,000, with about half of that being from the Deafblind Extended Support Services unit, and the other half being stratified throughout all the other programs.
So only 500,000 of the 8.1 million. What happens to the 7 point something million?
Yeah, so there's two things there. One, some of those are multi-year. Two, some of those relate to some of the federal spending, which, as you know, operates on a different fiscal year.
Okay. So what's in the 3010 account is then a September fiscal year for you out of the state money, or is it still?
I'd have to check on that, the proration of that. But probably.
All right. Because I was
My hope
particularly
is we'll have
curious.
a budget director here who can answer some of these more technical specifics.
Right.
In coming months, we're in the process of hiring that person.
I mean, it would, be, well, just one quick thing and then a summary is that 3010 account, 74% of the money that was budgeted won't be spent. And that's a pretty big number.
Yes, people on this call should know, though, that's not for our lack of effort or anything else. The large majority of that, nearly all of it, is due to lack of utilization. Yet lack of utilization specifically tied to COVID. It's because programs were closed, the community was closed, like everything was closed. So that's what it is. It's not that we're dragging our feet spending money or we're trying to save money. It's nothing about that. It's utilization and the fact that we can't pay for services that don't get delivered, that don't get rendered.
I understand that.
Just for the public though, listening in, like I don't want them to think like, oh, MCB's holding back. We're not holding back. Matter of fact, we've been very creative to get as much money out there as we could.
So at the next meeting, it would be helpful if Chandra could kind of provide us a walkthrough of funds not spent, what's going to happen, what happens to the funds, what gets reverted, what happens to them, what will multi-year and so forth. And the same would be for the just going over the budget, how it's going to get spent and so forth.
My hope would be that our budget director is onboarded and can go over in detail at that point in time.
Yeah, but it'd be, the person who's going to be working for Chandra, and I think we want to hear it from Chandra. The last point is we've sort of asked over the last several meetings about concerning the reduction in rent. So if you take a look at what was spent.
Your email is accurate.
Well, no, there are two things.
Don't take this flippantly, but the question you asked is the answer. Like you asked the answer, like whatever the specific that you detailed is what it is. Yes, that hasn't changed.
Yeah, but what I saw is two different numbers on the impact of the rent reduction on both FY21 actual spending and the FY22 budget. I've seen two numbers. One was 97,000. That was in an email from Chandra, and the other one was $400,000 that you mentioned at I believe the March SAB meeting that's in the minutes. So the request is, what is the number, and that what accounts in FY21 actual and FY22 does that impact? Specifically. So if it's $100,000. 50,000 goes to the 001 account and 50,000 goes to the 3010 account. Yeah. So that's sort of the answer that we're taking, curious about.
Yeah. So not all of the rent savings are realized in 1 year is the answer for part of that. The other part of the answer is that we have chargebacks for both our 600 Washington Street location, which is the majority of that 400 that you mentioned. So shrinking of that footprint over the term of that lease is what the 400,000 represents, or the large amount of that 400,000.
All right. So go ahead.
Additionally, part of the chargeback is for our leased space in the state office building out in Springfield. So both of those are different arrangements than the quote unquote DCAM leases that we had in Worcester and New Bedford. Those leases were with private landlords, and they had a term to it and everything else. So those are the 50 and the 70 that you're referring to. The remainder is in chargebacks, not all of it realized in one fiscal year, and that's the large majority of that is for the Boston footprint over time, which will shrink Additionally, adding a wrinkle, last year, or actually 2 fiscal years ago, prior to COVID, under my leadership, we had shrunk our Boston office footprint. What didn't happen there was not an adjustment made on our chargeback for 2 years. That is now being made, and that is going to be resolved in the FY22 chargeback.
All right. So
I know that's convoluted.
No, I understand specifically what you're saying. So that I think we talked about specifically New Bedford and Fall River. I'm sorry, New Bedford and Worcester. But if Chandra can come to the next meeting, please, and just say, here's the number for New Bedford, here's the number for Fall River or New Bedford, here's the number for Worcester, here's how it's impacted FY21, here's how it will impact FY22 budget by account, and then reductions in footprint or whatever on Springfield and Boston. Also those. So those four areas and what the impact is by account. And she should be able to do it. I understand there'll be
I will put in a request to Chandra, who will then ask her either budget director or Max or some combination thereof to attend to speak to those specific technicalities.
Right. I think the committee would like to see Chandra because she runs.
Joe, I think you've made your request.
Yep.
And I agree with what you're saying. And now either the commissioner will honor the request or not.
Okay, very good. So thank you very much. I would turn the chair back over to the chair.
Thank you, sir. Susan, why don't you and Joe run with it for a few minutes with the comprehensive need assessment and other items on the agenda that you two are familiar with?
Sure, thank you. I think Joe and I have both had a chance to read most of the reports that were that MCB had funded a variety of contractors to do, including the comprehensive state needs assessment, a feasibility study to evaluate establishment of a for-profit business, feasibility of a blind business enterprise. I think there's quite a few. And there are some they're publicly available. And I think in prior minutes and in prior discussions, there's been a link to those reports if folks wanted to take a look at that. There are a lot of recommendations coming out of those reports. And one of the things that we discussed at the last May meeting, what was the status of those recommendations and what was MCB prioritizing? What did they agree with? What did they not agree with or didn't feel was a priority at this time? And we had requested to get information about that. And just as another update, I had the chance to talk with Mary Adiato because we're also charged with looking at the dashboards. And Mary sent me a draft of a spreadsheet on how to, what the recommendations were on all the reports and some way to look at that. And I gave her some input about how we could perhaps get that information. So it's in process, Chris, and I have seen it. I have seen it in development. I do know that Mary, and she gave me permission to publicly state that she's had a urgent situation, personal situation, and is unable to attend this meeting and will be back after July 4th holiday, and we'll be looking at both the summary of those recommendations and the dashboard. But I think a couple of things that I'd like to know, and I wonder, Joe, if you're in agreement with this, is of all of those reports and all of the initiatives, which ones and the recommendations that arose, which ones do MCB agree with? Which ones does MCB prioritize as something they'd like to advance in the next 6 months to a year? A lot of those things, a lot of the recommendations are extended efforts, not just immediate fixes. And then which ones might you not agree with or are low priority for the time being. And hopefully by next meeting, by July 30th, we may have more material. Joe, are you, and Chris, are you in agreement with that approach to the recommendations on the report?
I am, yes, Susan.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I think we want to say we're not necessarily reviewing the quality of the recommendations or whether we as a SAB are suggesting which ones should be prioritized and which ones to go. I think we'd like to see, given all the investment in those activities, what did you get from that and what are you investing in? And that'll give us a sense of basically the from that investment, what quality of work did you get from that? So that's—
You don't want to go
the
through
update.
them now?
No, I don't think there's necessary to go through them now, Commissioner, unless there's anything you wanted to talk about as a priority. I think Mary, and with probably others at MCB, is preparing a summary of those recommendations that we can look at the next meeting. I'm just updating on the status of that. If there are some high priority or recommendations or things that you wanted to talk about, I think that would be great too.
I'll do whichever. I'm prepared to speak on all of them if you want, but whichever you choose.
In some ways, I think it'd be good for us to see the whole analysis of all the recommendations at once and then start to look at which ones we'd want to hear about. I think there's a tremendous amount of work in all of it. I, for one, Chris and Joe, wonder if there's something, Commissioner, that you felt was the highest priority, the thing that you are most interested in advancing from any of the activities.
Yeah, so just for context too, for the public joining, recognize that this is, I mean, I guess we're in RC business, but that's fine. This is what we're talking about here. These are specifically vocational rehabilitation issues that impact people who are involved with our vocational rehabilitation program specifically, which for context, that's somewhere between 8 and 20% of all of our consumers, right? Depending upon how you want to look at it, it's some phase or whatever. But our What's Your Vision campaign that's going on right now is very important, and we're getting tremendous results from it. So that's probably the biggest campaign here from this group of reallotment projects. It's on air right now. It's on television. It's on radio. It's been in print. We have other collateral marketing materials that are going out under it. So that's probably the biggest one. And then some others related to that, like, you've seen this before. We've shown it. The Quest for Independence, that's active. That's ongoing. That continues to go well. So many of these are action related, and I don't think there'll ever be like a quote unquote like conclusion. I mean, I suppose at the end of What's Your Vision, we'll have metrics to report of how many people we reached and things like that. And then still others, I don't think, others were devised really to just be a knowledge base for us. And it's not that there ever will be quote unquote like action taken. They weren't done for that purpose. They were done to be able to inform us so we can make decisions off of. But again, I mean, if you want, I was prepared to talk on all of these, the statewide needs assessment, the rehab needs assessment. I have meetings set up. For example, I'm going to be meeting with Kevin Lynch. Kevin is the president of the National Industries for the Blind, where we're going to be, they helped inform one of the projects. We're going to be going over the for-profit business enterprise and the potentiality of that, I guess you'd say, or the viability of that going forward. So, I mean, and then still others are in process, like the closure findings, that's just something we have to provide. That just helps natural work that we have to do with RSA all the time anyway. The study of the tax tables, getting that publication out there. We have 2 audiences. So we did 2 separate ones. One is directed at consumers. We're working with the Department of Revenue to be able to get that out there to consumers and work with them to use their credibility as the tax collector for the state and partnering on that. And then additionally, for the tax tables and publications, getting that into tax professionals' hands, professional tax preparers, CPAs, accountants, things like that. So, I mean, I could keep going if you want, but I don't know.
Susan, what's your preference? I mean, I would like, and you're not going to cover it now, but if the commission believes that the vision campaign was sort of the most important or successful one, it would be good to get a review of it. What does that mean? What does it mean by good results? You know, I'm not sure I understand it. I haven't seen anything on TV or heard anything on radio, so I don't know. I don't know the schedule. It'd be good to send out to the committee or post on your website when the television spots will run. That would be interesting. But you know, having a detailed review of whichever ones you pick, and as Susan indicated, what's your priority? What do you get for it? Where are you going to invest? That should be probably a fairly big part of the July meeting. I don't know how you feel, Susan.
Yeah, I think I agree that partly it's to keep things in context and not, there are so many. There are, I don't know, something like 16 to 20 or so. And
24.
24, thank you. And there are a lot of recommendations. Some of them are overlapping. Some of them, it's not clear which ones that MCB agrees with. So I would like to get more of a summary that Mary's putting together to kind of get a sense of that. I don't think the role of the SAB is to necessarily review each one or to go into detail on each one. I think there was considerable investment using reallotment funds to fund most of these projects, and I think we're trying to understand what you got from it and what you are looking to explore. But Commissioner, if you've prepared, I also think that perhaps looking at the comprehensive needs assessment or those on the list, if there is something that you wanted to add today, that would be wonderful to hear. I'm glad that the marketing campaign is something that you're seeing as very successful. However, given the content of, given the expansive nature of all these recommendations, I think it would be helpful to have it in context of all the other efforts that you're doing rather than going one by one right now. Chris, I don't know what you have time for in the meeting and what you want to discuss.
Well, I'll follow your lead on that, Susan. That makes sense to me. Commissioner, if I could get back to a point that one of the 509 representatives made, and that was, they were saying that the number of people seeking MCB services is up. I believe that's what I heard. Is that correct?
Lauren, do you advise me to answer or not?
I mean, it's a difficult answer because due to COVID,
I just want to
the
make
answer
sure
might
any
also
answer
be
couldn't
influenced by that, you know?
And I just want to make sure any answer isn't then construed as a bargaining.
I don't know. I really don't think it's a simple. It's a simple answer,
right,
as to yes or no. It's not really.
How's this?
I don't see that.
So I think a couple of different things. I think as a result of COVID, more people were home for longer periods of time. I think that's a true statement. And I think as a result of that, we had an opportunity to engage people that, were it not for that, we might not have normally engaged. I think that's probably also a true statement. Additionally, efforts we're making pre-pandemic to get more consumers serviced, I think those are now coming to fruition. When it's then buttressed by a campaign that's seen on TV, albeit related in a different way, specifically to VR, it still builds the profile of the agency, so you get more calls that way. Another thing related, the work we've done to revitalize and completely transform our system of bringing people into the agency, our central registry system, and the work we're now doing with the eye care providers, that we've put in a lot of time there to convey to them, hey, we know it's a difficult conversation to have with your patient, but the sooner we are able to provide services, the better off we think they're going to be in the long run. So I think the combination of all these things, I do think you're going to see when we have reports to present, I think you'll see an increase.
Thank you. That's very interesting. That was not a loaded question on my part. I just, the next item on the agenda involves dashboards to track the performance of MCB employees and the delivery of services to consumers. So I was thinking, well, consistent with that, is the number of consumers increasing or decreasing? So that was the reason for that. And no, thank you for that answer. Susan, are you saying that you'd prefer to put off a discussion of dashboards until July 30, in which case that's fine?
I can give a brief update, and then, yes, I would like to have it on the agenda for the July 30th meeting. Mary Adiato and I did get a chance to talk, and I know Judy Savageau, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name, Judy, has also been interacting with Mary and on the dashboard. We were trying to figure out, and Mary is not available until after July 5th, but we were trying to figure out how we can use a small number of indicators using data already collected to look at case flow. And what I mean by that is just new registrants, new applicants, closure rates or returns, and not as a measure of performance, but as a measure of just, is the demand going up and down? Or things are, there are a lot more registrants, et cetera. And to make that as a quick guide to see if things are moving up, moving down, staying steady. And I think it's not too dissimilar from what other tools are out there that people are using the Aware Case Management System for, or other materials. So our plan was that Mary, Judy, and I, and Judy, I think if you want to introduce yourself, I think Chris, maybe we can give a minute for that, to spend the summer trying to create a draft of what would be useful. I think Mary would be the person creating the dashboard with MCB and using Judy and I as advisors for that. And could we then look at how we might be able to use that data for the SAB? So we are not requiring Mary to do anything in particular. We're just advising her on use of data and giving some ideas. That might be able to answer the question, are there more applicants, or what's happening? Nationally, applicants are going down. The percentage of youth is going up. There's a lot of things happening that it's not just MCB, it's a national change in demographics of who approaches commissions for the blind and who approaches rehab programs. So that's the summary to date. Mary has an outline of a few items that she wants to consider, and we will meet over the summer, July and August, to see if we can help her narrow it down. Judy, fair assessment? Fair?
Absolutely. I know a number of you on this call and have done a lot of work with the commission over the years, just as a result of my son's visual impairment. And so I'm an epidemiologist and a biostatistician. I work at UMass Medical School. I deal with data all day long, every day. And so when I spoke with Mary and also with Susan about this, it's something I am more than happy to help with. to try and answer these questions. I think data just gives us the information we need. It's the evidence that we need to sort of evaluate what we're doing, to know whether it's working or not, to identify, areas where we should be targeting things or where the commission should be targeting things better. So to the extent that I can help out with that, I am more than happy to do so, just on a voluntary capacity, just out of interest and having some expertise in dealing with these numbers. So yes, I think the goal is for us to sort of help Mary get to where she can then provide the information both for the commission and for this group in terms of how to move forward.
Thank you, Judy. And I do see Patricia Hart here. Patricia Hart is the maven when it comes to this. She's done countless, just for the public to know. So every 3 years, by the Rehabilitation Act, we are required to provide RSA, which is the Rehabilitation Services Administration. They are our federal funders for vocational rehabilitation. We are required every 3 years to provide a review and update of our comprehensive statewide needs assessment. Trish, do you have anything to add?
No, it sounds very exciting. Judy and Susan would be a great help to Mary. Of course, we do track these figures already, but as you said, they're provided to the federal government, they're provided to you, David, as the commissioner, but not perhaps in a dashboard form. So that would be very exciting if we could have help with that.
And then additionally, not all states took the approach that we take, quite frankly. Some states, matter of fact, I think most states, Patricia, do their comprehensive statewide needs report, assessment rather, internally, which is fine. That's one approach. We decided to say, hey, let's bring in a fresh perspective, an objective third party to do it. And we were very pleased with the results that, look, do we have some work to do? Absolutely. But I was very encouraged by the good work that's being done.
Yeah, most commissions for the blind and most rehabilitation agencies have massive amounts of data, and you've got a case management system. And
what do you do with it? I know it's a lot.
Yeah, so it's not to supplant those activities, and the comprehensive needs assessment that you recently done has a wide variety of data and information. I think it's a challenge sometimes to then just pick 6 of things you want to track over time on a regular basis that provide information that's usable. So
I'll give you an example. I don't know if SASE is, oh, I'm sorry, Susan, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So I don't know if SASE is still here, but I was very encouraged when starting as commissioner. One of the things I heard from people like SASE and some people down the Cape and other was challenges with rural consumers, and PCG came to that conclusion. And as a result, we've addressed that, or at least made strides to address it, with our relationship with New England College of Optometry, for an example, where they have a fellow serving these traditionally underserved areas, so that we can get people with low vision diagnosed as legally blind, so we can get them the services. So I guess that's just a way of reaffirming that, there was no, I don't think there were any aha moments in the CSNA, right? There was no wow, where did that come? We had no idea. So some of these are longstanding challenges that we need to work on. But again, I think it's encouraging. And Susan, to your point, I agree with you. The more data, and Judy, the more data you have, the better opportunity you have to act on it and program services to address those needs.
I do have one comment, though, that and I know Trish and I have spoken about this years and years ago when I was on the rehab committee, and it's disappointing to me, but I say this again as a researcher. I do a lot of survey methodology, and historically, and maybe this time with PCG, it's different. I don't know the number, but historically, the responses to many of the surveys that have gone out have been a relatively low response rate. And so one of the questions I always would bring up is the fact that it may feel good that you've heard from 30% of your respondents out of several thousand people, but that means you don't know anything about 70% of the people who you're providing service to. And so until you can get to a pretty reasonable response rate, the generalizability of some of the data that is often collected based on these low numbers is really, it's not as generalizable as you think it is. So while I have no doubt that the rural population, and obviously we're not a frontier state like Idaho, but we certainly have a lot of rural small town areas in Massachusetts, and for all of care, whether it's on the social service side or VR or healthcare, it's very difficult to access. You just don't have enough providers in all of those different locations. But I would love to see the commission get to a place where they have much more recognizable sort of response rates to the data that they're collecting, so that they really can speak on behalf of the majority of the people that you're serving.
Well,
And
thank you.
I just want to add a
Go
point, Chris, and then I'll summarize, I'll close.
Please.
That the point of looking at this data and dashboard is to advance, is to look at things that are moving forward and progressing and improving. It's not a monitoring, compliance, gotcha kind of approach. I think as the PCG has identified rural areas, one thing that we could look at the dashboard using administrative data is to identify zip codes that might have high rural populations. And anytime someone applies from any of those zip codes, we're tracking that. And so you find out in the month of August, 100 people in rural zip codes applied. And that's a positive. So in this, it's not just measuring various data points, it's being strategic about what you're trying to accomplish and do you know you're getting there. So that's all I want to say. It's not an effort to, find performance issues. It's an effort to see if things are going the way you want them to go strategically. So that's my closer for the dashboard. It'll be
Thank you.
fun.
It sounds like there's a lot of expertise focused on this, and we'll revisit it next month. Now, Kim Charlson isn't here today, but I know that she has concerns about AIM Library. Commissioner, could we have an update regarding that?
Yeah, that continues to go well. And we're actually having interviews this week. I have a hard stop at 2 because I have an interview at 2 for our registration coordinator. So, for the warehouse technician, excuse me. We did registration coordinator early this week. So we're on track for a July 1 start date of the program at MCB. And the ISA has been signed by us. It's been signed by DESE. And my understanding is it's at the comptroller, and we're waiting for them to approve it. They have to go over it, make sure everything's good. And then once that happens, we're off to the races. We did an MOU as well. And I think we're in the final stages of finalizing that. That should probably be finalized next week. So we're looking good. We have communications going out to the TVI community through AIMSV, and Carrie has been communicating. We've been working well with Carrie Brazier, who's the incumbent director of the program. She's been getting the word out. She's confident that there won't be an interruption. So I think we're in a really good place.
Thank you. Joe Abley, looking back to your running the Carroll Center years, do you have any questions for David regarding AIM? Guess not.
You're on mute, Joe.
Oh.
Sorry about that. The same question as I had before, that if for some reason, whether it's the controller or hiring or what have you, is not signed by July 1, and this is the time of year from my experience where a lot of the materials are ordered, because a lot of the particularly books are very, very long lead time. If things are not in order on July 1, what happens?
Yeah, so we've considered that. We do have some contingencies in place. We could do an amendment, and with the Carroll Center, fortunately, we have a great relationship with Greg and Dina and the people over there, and Carrie does as well. So that's one potential avenue. Another potential avenue is through DESI. And even another potential avenue is through our existing relationship with the larger AIM, American Printing House. So again, Carrie has been working all along. So it's not like things have been delayed, like she's stopped. So ordering has commenced. Some books have been out and others are in process. So we do have some contingency plans, but we are optimistic that we will have it in-house and be fully operational by that date. Could be as early as next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think the last item involves, and this is really not an urgent item, but several months ago we were talking about making events that the blindness community might be interested in, give more publicity to that, and have them listed on Newsline, for example. What's the status of having events listed on Newsline, and what other public relations calendar type progress is being made?
So Carla has finally gotten access after a number of months of trying. There was, I don't know if people were out on vacation, there was some things going on on the Newsline end. That's all resolved now. We're beginning to put content up there. As to Jane's point, not all of the things are fully filled out yet because we may or may not have content for that specific thing. We're trying to figure out how best to be able to use it. We've asked for metrics. We haven't gotten those yet. So once we get those, I think we'll be able to better program. But we continue to see all of our other channels grow and grow significantly. All of our social media channels keep adding people. We keep getting very positive input from all corners of the community on that. Additionally, the public events and meetings that we have are all very well attended on Zoom. Those keep growing. So there's been a lot of interest and it keeps increasing. And I think with What's Your Vision campaign, that's part of it also. We did get a report earlier this week, Carla and I, and hopefully I'll be able to provide that soon. But we got an early indication from Marketing Doctor, which is the vendor who did the ad buy for us, about the penetration and views that we've had with the campaign. And it's all very significantly, there's a lot of interest in MCB.
Good.
Is any of this stuff on TV running like during morning, early evening, and late evening newscasts?
Yeah. So,
and if so, what channels?
So to get the best bang for the buck, they negotiated a deal that it's all throughout the day. So sometimes it might be like I saw it after the Bruins game, the last Bruins game. It was the first commercial right out of the break. Others have seen it in the morning. Some others have seen it like right after Jeopardy. So I think it depends. Additionally, we have gotten reports from consumers that they've seen it in their local newspapers or heard it on the radio. So it's not even at full altitude yet. July, August, and September are the heaviest months, particularly like September, gearing up for National Disability Employment Awareness Month, because all the dollars have to be spent by October 1 anyway. So September is the heaviest. So if you haven't seen it by then, you will see it then, is what they told.
Well, I think I asked this before, but would you send the buy schedule and when it's going to run and so forth to the SAB?
Yeah.
By media?
We can request it. We don't have that. We can request that if that's available for Marketing Doctor.
You're paying for it. You should have it.
I think you get it retroactively, though. In other words, you pay, they air them, and then after they've aired, at the end, you get a report. So
that's not how I used to do it. I used to know.
So We'll put in that request and hopefully they can provide it.
How much is the aggregate buy that's going to fall into this federal year?
I want to say it's 440,000 but don't quote me. We'd have to go back and look, but it's 400 something thousand. And it's multimodal. So it's TV, it's radio, it's print, it's web.
Well, thank you. Susan or Joe, I don't have any more questions. Commissioner, one comment that you made interested me. Are we spending a disproportionate amount of time on VR versus SR issues, in your opinion?
It's your agenda. Whatever you want to ask, I'm going to answer. That we do have a competent and active rehabilitation council, which is specifically focused on vocational rehabilitation. They meet quarterly. But it's your prerogative. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about.
Okay. Excellent. Well, and the last item is we're going to meet on July 30. We're not going to meet in August. Would Regina just send us a couple of Fridays in September that work for a noon meeting for you? I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Okay.
We'll
huddle with Regina and try to map those out. It is going to be a busy fall, I'll tell you that.
Well, just give us please give us 1 or 2 Fridays in September for noon meeting, and we'll
just with
right
things
back.
opening up, there's a lot more. There's some everybody wants to meet now. COVID is getting a little bit easier to navigate. So.
Right. Excellent. Susan or Joe, anything else before we call it a day?
Nothing here.
Nothing
Alrighty.
for me. I do want to alert you that there are a couple of public attendees that have their hands raised.
Oh, well, let's see, what time is it? We're almost at 2 o'clock. Okay, we have a few minutes. Yes, thank you. Members of the public, Regina, please call on somebody.
Hi, yes, we have Jeremiah.
Yes, please.
Just quick observation. In terms of the monies that have not been utilized as a result of COVID, are there any exceptions because of COVID for those to be reallocated or for an extension to be made for those to be actually utilized?
Yeah, that's a great question. That would be up to the legislature. If they choose to enact that law saying, hey, you can carry program year dollars over from one year to the next, that's their call. I think that has occurred before. I don't know when the last time is. Chandra and I did discuss that briefly. I don't know if that's likely though.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next.
For the feds, as Susan will tell you, I'm sorry. For the feds, as Susan will tell you, they do that all the time. Well, I shouldn't say all the time, but they do that periodically. And matter of fact, one of their things is with VR dollars, you get 2 years to spend it. So there is talk additionally of some of the VR money getting, but I think, Jeremiah, I think you were referring to social rehabilitation, state dollars.
Yes, it's also good to know about the VR side, but thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Gina, anyone else?
Yes, David Kingsbury is next.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, David.
Hi, how are you? Along the lines of the last agenda point related to communication, information sharing and the like, as you know, on this meeting and as well as the last RC meeting, it seems to be established that people from the public who want to record the meetings can do so. So that seems clear now. Is there any clarity yet, though, on what those participants can do with the recordings? Because as you know, the BSCB, we would like to share these with our members. We think they're very informational, either simply on our e-list or perhaps even posting them on the website. So is there any more clarity yet on what people can do with the recordings once they have them?
Good question, David. And regarding the whole meeting thing in general, I mean, one of the things I want to do is I don't want to disenfranchise anybody from participating, right? So I want as many people to participate as want to participate. And so that's been our position all along. That'll remain our position. But with that, recently, matter of fact, was it yesterday, Lauren, or the day before, the governor signed new legislation, excuse me, around what will be allowed to continue in for remote participation and things like that. And I believe it's going to expire in April of 22. Right, Lauren? Do you have additional
that's
details to add?
correct.
Go ahead.
That's correct. So what the governor's legislation did is it said, okay, well, we're going to continue with remote participation. The Attorney General's website says, and the governor's office also says, but you still have to comply with the regulations. So I think we're going to have to look at possibilities for in-person meetings again. We're talking about that internally
Or a
to
hybrid.
discuss what it means, right?
So in other words, have the voting members present,
right,
but then have the public be able to participate remotely.
Right. So there'd have to be a quorum of people present. So for the RC, that means one thing because they have a lot more members, and for the SAB, that means another thing because you have 5 members. And we're trying to put together landing pages. There's going to be a SAB landing page, and there's going to be an RC landing page. The whole idea behind that is so that we can post the meetings on that page, and that whoever wanted to could go to that link and get the meetings. So if you have a page, for instance, with the advocacy groups, and you wanted to post that meeting, you would just connect to our link. As to recordings, I think going forward, that people will not be able to use the link inside our Zoom to record. They'll be referred to the link on the landing page. That if there is a reason that they need the recording, they can make a reasonable accommodation to the agency, and that the agency will review that on a case-by-case basis. And if it is, if after an interactive conversation and all of that, I don't decide that. We have an HR liaison who also acts as the ADA person. She decides that. And if that were the case, then we could then talk about how to provide either the full recording, or if you didn't want to use up your entire computer space for that meeting, maybe an MP3. But so there are still things that we're doing internally in the agency to try and set it up to make it as easy as possible.
Would that landing page have the recordings? Because again, my concern has been, not that many people can attend these meetings from 12 to 2 on a given day, and it would be just useful to get more of that information out there. So would these landing pages have the recordings?
Yeah, that would be the goal. They would have the URL. Yeah, they would have the URL, the Universal Resource Locator. That link would take you to our YouTube page. Our YouTube page would quote unquote host the video. Like, so in other words, the bandwidth, the space that meeting takes up sits in YouTube. So the link though would be on our website.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
To make it available to everybody. And that's been our, I don't want to say concern, but that's what we've been trying to do all along, is how best do we put these policies and procedures in place? Because it's one thing to record a meeting, and it's another with what happens to the recording and whose responsibilities is, because that becomes a public record, and we have laws that we need to abide by. Like Lauren, for example, is our custodian of records at the agency. She then has to make sure that the meeting is recorded accurately and it's not, it's in its original format and it's available and, it's stored for a certain amount of time and it's accessible. All of the
Right,
things
and we'd
that
want
go
to
with
do
it.
that. We want to do that from the beginning so that I don't have to make those evaluations later. You just want to be assured that this is the entire meeting. It hasn't been edited and blah, blah, blah.
And especially when different agencies have been doing different things.
Right, exactly.
So we're trying to figure that out. And I think we're on a good path. And again, more participation, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
David Kingsbury, and sort of following up on your question, last night I researched this, and there's a Supreme Judicial Court case of Bolter, Boelter versus Board of Selectmen of Wayland. I don't have the site offhand, but the Supreme Judicial Court in a pre-Zoom decision a couple of years ago, they focused on the fact that the Board of Selectmen of Wayland, had to provide certain performance evaluations to the general public within 10 days of the meeting, even if it was a hassle for the Board of Selectmen to do so. And it just sort of stressed the public policy importance of open meeting laws. And I couldn't find any case, any published decision that addressed the Zoom era. But I think it's great that Lauren and the commissioner and others are looking at this, but the strong focus of the SJC was that this open meeting law is supposed to accommodate the general public. So if anybody wants to talk about this at the July meeting, we can, but I'm glad to see the progress is being made. So
Yeah,
excellent.
I'll have to look up that case because I am not, that sounds a little like public records. So I'll look it up though. Thank you very much.
It's not
Chris.
directly on point, but it just talks about the importance of making, this is a public record.
Well, we
meeting.
would get it up as soon as possible, but there are
Right.
certain things that are triggered. So I'll have to look that up. Thanks, Chris.
It's not directly on point, but the SJC is obviously the last word in this Commonwealth. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Have a great 30 days.
You too.
And we'll,
Everybody has a great Juneteenth and great Father's Day.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.